So, for our last week together, I want us to think about the possibility of existential risks. What are existential risks? Well, just the end of the world. I want you guys to think about the end of the world. Could the end of the world happen? Could it happen soon? If it does, what kinds of things would cause it? Uh, so some of the things that we might consider ethically are well, the way I look at it from the perspective of an ethics class is we can ask a question like, what's the worst thing that could happen, right? And the end of the world seems like it could be pretty high on that list. So if the world were to end, or worse, if the world were to plunge into horrific dystopia, maybe that's worse. Maybe that's worse. I don't know. That's maybe debatable. Um, we we might want to do something about that. We might want to stop the worst possible thing from happening. So so to do that, we gotta consider like what are some possibilities here. So some possibilities could be natural things. So here's some here's some oh, I want to non-anthropogenic. These are natural things. Non-anthropogenic means not human made, right? So what could happen? Asteroid impact could happen. Interstellar collision, so like planets and stars bumping into each other. Physics hazards, so maybe some strange physics. Gamma ray bursts, so that's like when the star shoots out a beam. Um, Usually when like a supernova happens, right? So a supernova, which is a star exploding, shoots out a beam, and we get caught in the beam. The sun could have a flare. Uh, Other kinds of things. Pandemics and climate change, these could happen. Um, a lot of these kinds of catastrophes, though, we might not be able to avoid. So, like, it's not as though we can stop a gamma ray burst. It's not like we can reverse climate change. Maybe if we developed super crazy technologies someday, like sci-fi technologies, maybe we can reverse climate change. Maybe we can dodge gamma ray bursts. Like I guess if we fly off the planet, maybe we can dodge a gamma ray burst. But these things could happen, right? These are natural things in our environment that could kill us, that could kill all of us, basically. Um, it might be more interesting though to consider the anthropogenic risks. So anthropogenic risks are the ones that we could cause. It might so the reason why this might be more interesting is simply because like we have something to do with them. We are causing them, or we could stop them possibly. Um, so what are some of these? So a big one is artificial intelligence. So we all have seen movies where the robots take over. I assigned a movie where the robots take over, right? Um, so that's a live issue. Like that's considered a possibility even by the people who are building the robots. They say things like like we should put in safety precautions because these could get out of control. Um, we can ask ourselves if we should be letting them do that. If they actually think that a robot's gonna if we're gonna lose control, why are we letting them build it? That's a consideration for you, but but that's happening right now, right? So we're thinking about biotechnology. So like, uh, we could make super viruses possibly. So we're doing genetic engineering. Could that genetic engineering result in a lab leak where we all we all get infected and the whole planet dies? Um, it's not out of the question, I don't think, because we can imagine. I mean, some people think this is what COVID was. It's a controversial theory, but if COVID was that, then this has already happened. So we, even if we don't believe that COVID was a lab leak, we should at least worry about lab leaks happening. They have happened before, um, and it could be made worse if the technology gets better and better, right? What else? Chemical weapons, having fewer children. So this chemical weapons is a lot like bio weapons. The possibility of super viruses or something like that. There could also be super chemicals. Um, Having fewer children. So maybe people just stop having children. This actually is a concern in some countries. Some countries, particularly I think it's Korea and Japan, are worried about the fact that people are having much less kids there, and with much less kids, you run into issues like who's going to take over the jobs when the people retire. Are people going to retire and just there's nobody gonna take their place? What's going to happen? Um, Climate change. So this is a perennial concern. People are worried about the various ways we're affecting the climate. So even if you're a skeptic about certain kinds of climate change, um, you can't be a skeptic about all of it. Like some of it's just obvious. Like you pave over a forest in order to build your shopping mall. That's climate change a little bit, like right on a very small scale, right? So um, we do have to worry that we are affecting the environment in ways that could result in catastrophe, possibly, um, and ways that maybe we can't take back. Like it's conceivable that we can't undo some of the things. Maybe we could undo it if we figured it out, if we were creative and inventive about it. But definitely something to be concerned about. Cyber attacks. So this one is similar to AI. So recently one of the best AI models was taken off the market. Um, Basically, the U.S. government told the company that it was too much of a risk of cyber attack. This AI can do the cyber attacks, and if that's the case, I mean, so also it's worth noting that the company themselves said that the company themselves were like this could be a serious cyber security threat. Um, so I mean, if that's already happening, I mean, think of how much technology seems to improve every year. Could there be a cyber attack that just sort of destroys our infrastructure? So just everything stops working. Like imagine that. Imagine all your devices stop working because of a cyber attack. Your lights in your house stop working because the energy companies got hacked. Everything just stops working. Um, that would be a disaster. That we could have massive social upheaval because of something like that. Because think of how integrated we are. The whole world is integrated on telecommunications networks now. Um, how would we do it if all those failed at once? How would we figure that out? Um, Here's some sciency ones: evolution, experimental accidents. So this one's interesting. The Large Hadron Collider. I don't know if you guys took physics and are aware of that, but the Large Hadron Collider is a giant particle accelerator that they use to do high energy physics experiments. And people were worried that the Large Hadron Collider, when it was smashing the atoms together, they were worried it could cause a black hole, and the black hole could like eat the Earth. They were worried about this. This was in the news at the time. It didn't happen. We're still here, but scientists were actually concerned about it. I don't know if you guys watched Oppenheimer, the movie about the nuclear bomb, but in Oppenheimer, they were concerned that they could ignite the atmosphere and scorch the world. It turns out the physics doesn't quite work that way. So nukes can be blown up without igniting the atmosphere. Like great news. But they tried it anyway. They blew one up just to see what would happen. And I mean, if they had been wrong about that, if it did ignite the atmosphere, we wouldn't be here, right? Or we'd be maybe like living in fallout bunkers or something. Those of us who those of us who weren't scorched, or whose parents weren't scorched. Um, what else? We have other things, nanotechnology, mentioned nuclear war. Um, those of you who are fans of like the Fallout games, um, we've come close historically to living in the Fallout games. Like we've come close to having total nuclear war. There have been a few historical incidents where um, it was sort of a toss up. It was a gamble whether or not we would go that direction. And in a few different cases, one person made a choice, and that choice was not to go to nuclear war, which is pretty crazy to think about. That the fate of the world rested in the hands of a person. Okay, so these are a bunch of things that we can worry about. Um, these are a bunch of things that maybe we can control. So some of us might end up going into some of these fields. Some of us may work on artificial intelligence or biotechnology. And if you're going to do that, you have to do that under the consideration that this could go very poorly for a lot of people, right? Um, so that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is that given that these are risks, and given that these may be the most important things, like this is like the thing they send James Bond in for, right? To stop world destruction or world domination. What should we be doing? Like, there things that we ourselves could be doing to help to stop some of this, to stop these bad outcomes from happening. Um, are there things you yourselves could be doing right now? I don't know. There certainly are things people are trying to do. Um, things that could like prepare for these kinds of contingencies. Another thing we might think about is if the world's going to end, if that's something we have to accept, that like maybe there's actually very little we can do, and maybe the world probably will end at some point. um, how do we live our lives knowing that? So if we all, well, we're all going to die, presumably. We all know that. uh, and we live our lives under the shadow of death. We can also live our lives under the shadow of knowing that the world is going to die too. So how do we live? How would you live, let's say, if you knew the world was going to end? How would you live if you knew you were going to die soon? Um, these are types of questions. These are types of questions that aren't just related to these specific risks, but sort of consider just the human condition. We we aren't guaranteed our time here. So if we aren't guaranteed our time here, how do we live? Um, one thing is we might want to live our best life now. We might want to make sure we're doing the things that are the good things. Um, not waiting, not waiting for not waiting for the good life to come, but making sure the good life is happening right now. That's one thing. Another thing is we might live our life servicing the world, knowing that even if the world is going to end, we tried our best. You know, we tried our best to make the world last as long as we could and as good as and go as well as we could. Something like that. Anyways, that's how I want you guys to think about the end of this class, because this class is coming to an end, right? Um, as things do. So, how do we deal with things that are coming to an end? Might be a way of thinking about it. All right. Hope that's not too depressing of a lecture there, but I hope it gives you a lot of things to ponder about the future.